Well, hello, everybody. It's David Mitchell again. Welcome to the August edition to the Mayor's monthly video. We're really excited today to have State Senator Lance Bell with us. And I'm going to just real quick go through what we've got on the agenda today. So going to have Senator Bell talk to us a little bit here in a few minutes. And then I've got just a few questions and concerns that I'm going to address after that. One question about traffic stops, primarily the volume of traffic stops in town. We did have a traffic stop question last month, but this is a different issue, so I'll address that. And last month we had some concerns expressed about yard sales and trade days, and I'm going to give you an update on what's going on there. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce State Senator Lance Bell. This is Lance's first term as state senator for our district. So for those of folks in Columbiana who may not know Lance, I'm going to turn it over to him, let him introduce himself, tell you about himself and what's going on in the state Senate in the state of Alabama. So Lance, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm born right off the I-20 exit at Cook Springs and right outside Pell City. Born and raised in the country, and that's about all I know is a country boy trying to take some common sense to Montgomery, where sometimes we think that lacks common sense. First term, I'm learning. This session, my motto was go down there and learn. I've read the rules 100 times. I'm going to go down there and just kind of be quiet my first session and take it all in and learn, especially where the restrooms are and the kind of the important things. But I'm not a bashful person, so after being there about 2 or 3 weeks, next thing I knew, I was up at the microphone because something just didn't make sense to me, and I just couldn't be quiet. So I found myself at the mic more times than I ever thought I would be, but just some common sense things that I thought needed to be brought up. And we've got a lot of challenges ahead, and trying to navigate those challenges and learn the process of navigating those challenges. And this is a kind of a weird district. I have most of St. Clair County, most of Talladega County. And then I come into Shelby County. I have Wilsonville, Columbiana, and Calera, and share Calera part a little bit. April Weaver's got a little bit of it. So I've got 2 young boys, 14 and 11, starting back to school. It was a crazy time of year getting all those school supplies done. My wife, Holly, and I think we've had 2 special sessions and a regular session this year already. And I think my wife's about ready to wring my neck and tell me I got to stay home a little bit more.
Well, don't do that because we need you in the Senate. So tell us, what went on this last session, and in particular, what is it do you want to accomplish as a state senator that's going to be important, particularly the folks here in Columbiana, but for all across your district?
I think Columbiana is the same as a lot of our towns around St. Clair County that I see. The economic growth. We need the economic growth. I want my children, when my children graduate high school, I want them to stay home. I want them to stay around this area and not have to move off for their career. And I want to provide better opportunities for them. And it's working through some things with economic development and recruitment. I don't mind going anywhere to recruit a company to come here. And I think if we do a better job of that, we can keep our children home. So they're not having to move to a different state or a different area of this state, and create those opportunities here. Mm-hmm. And education. We're always in the high 40s in education, and I don't know the answer, but searching for the answer in that. And one thing that I am trying to work on this next session is something to protect our teachers. We're seeing far too many teacher assaults in our school system, and that's something we'd have never heard of when we went to school. Because if we got in trouble, no matter what, when we got home, we got in trouble again. And usually the punishment at home was worse than the punishment at school. When now the teacher gets on the student, the parents want to go and attack the teacher. And we've got to protect our teachers. One school system I was talking to, last year they had 40 teacher assaults, 3 of them required surgery. And somehow we've got to cut that out. It's creating a disruption. Our students are not able to learn. So every time something like that happens, it's disrupting the whole school. They're in a hard shutdown or lockdown, a soft lockdown or something, and it's happening all across the state. It's happening everywhere, but I'm more concerned about Alabama and what we do for our children.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we in Columbiana, we just finally got school resource officers in all of the campuses here in Columbiana. And that was a collaboration between the city of Columbiana, Shelby County, and the Board of Education to finally put forward the funds to do that. When things like the tragedy in Uvalde, Texas, and stuff like that occur, we always think it can't happen here. But by the same token, students and teachers need to be protected from the disruptors, if you will, in the classroom, and so they need resources in the school who can do that for them. I know I wasn't bashful either to talk to you about the money that what they were going to do with the surplus in the Education Trust Fund. I'm like you. I said, put it in schools. And I think we did most of that. So that's a good deal there. So,
yeah, I was a no vote on the rebate. I never had the first call of anybody telling me they wanted their rebate check. I had multiple calls with people telling me, take that and fix some problems we've got. And I was one of the few no votes on that in the Senate. I just thought we had better options that we could use that money for.
I agree.
So I just trying to use a little common sense, I hope.
Yeah, it's probably not a politically popular move to say I'm not going to give money away, but still, it might be the smartest thing for our state. And I agree with you. We don't need to be near the bottom of the rung as far as education. Now, in my opinion, and I shouldn't be on the soapbox here, but in my opinion, a lot of where we rank is based on how they rank schools, not necessarily the quality of schools. And a lot of and the ranking is largely dependent on how much money you spend per student. And there's a lot of school districts that don't do well in this country and spend a lot of money, but it's not really going to helping kids in education. So, we want to make sure we put the money towards making sure that our kids get a good education. Not every kid wants to go to college, but the last thing I want is for a kid not to have the opportunity should they want to go.
And it's the workforce development, welders, plumbers, HVAC. There's all kinds of trades out there that make really good money these days, and for our future, we've got to develop those and have that, and have the college credit or trade school credits coming in 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, where when they get out, they're not in a classroom for 4 solid years continuing that. They're in the workforce and they provide for their families, because a lot of, as we know, young people start families pretty early these days, and they got to provide for that family. So the workforce development's a big area that we've been working on some of that.
So we have the Career Technical Education Center here in Columbiana, and what I'd like to see, we have the typical stuff like, electricians and welding and HVAC. We really need to start focus on the more modern manufacturing techniques, the additive manufacturing, sometimes 3D printing it's called, but basically additive manufacturing. And obviously CNC machining, been around for a long time. The equipment and stuff that's required to do that's costly, but those are things that, to prepare our students to go work at many of the automotive OEMs. We have a robust aerospace industry. They're starting an aviation technology program at CTEC. So yeah, we want to make sure that we're focused on the right kinds of skills for kids as well.
During the special session, I introduced a resolution and got it through to develop advanced air mobility. And what it's going to be is the drones that deliver cargo and all that. The technology is developed up in Huntsville with NASA. We have a huge municipal airport system throughout our state, and some great groups that run it. And with the air transport, the unmanned aircraft transporting the cargo, I think we could use that system we already have in place in Alabama and expand on it. And that way gives us better resources to get this program off the ground. So I look for that technology. Who would have thought years ago when I was a kid watching the Jetsons on TV and the cartoons that technology would be here? And it's here upon us, and just amazing how it's developed in Huntsville, Alabama with NASA.
Well, Lance, what else would you like to share with us before we call it a day?
It's always good to come down here and go to the drugstore and get you a good cheeseburger.
That's right. It's a
I was able,
cheeseburger in paradise.
I was able to do that right before I come over here this morning. So I appreciate the opportunity to come down and learning about Columbiana, learning about the area, and meeting a lot of the people. And don't be bashful. Call me.
Okay.
I mean, as I've told you, call me anytime. I'm learning. I need help, and I want any ideas you have. I need those.
Tell our viewers and our citizens, if they don't know how to get in touch with you, how they can get in touch with you.
My best way is my cell phone, 205-812-5322. And I try to answer it as often as I can. I try to return the call on the same day, or lance.bell@alsenate.gov.
Lance.bell@alsenate.gov. Okay. Well, we'll appreciate you coming here, and we're looking forward to all the great things you're going to do for us over the next few years.
It takes all of us working together, man.
There you go. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, once again, I want to thank State Senator Lance Bell for coming by and talking to us. Looking forward to all the great things Lance is going to do for us here in Columbiana and all the communities in his district over the next several years. We had only one citizen question and comment that came up since last month, and it has to do with traffic stops. The question was, is there an initiative to stop every driver that passes through Columbiana by the police department? And a comment at the end of that was the city shouldn't be trying to make money by issuing tickets. So the short answer to that question is no, there's not an initiative to stop every driver that passes through Columbiana. However, I hope you have seen an increased presence by the Columbiana Police Department over the last several months. And let me explain to you why that may be the case. So we've had some significant staffing shortages in Columbiana over the last year to year and a half. In that period of time, sadly, we lost two of our finest officers as a result of their passing. And we also had some officers who were basically out of service due to work-related injuries, workers' comp, if you will. And it's been a real challenge for us to recruit and train experienced officers, which is what we prefer to do rather than bring a rookie off the street, if you will. So that challenge was there, had us shorthanded, so you didn't see our officers very much on the street. The other thing is we had an initiative that was a joint initiative between the City of Columbiana, Shelby County, and the Shelby County Board of Education to make sure that we had a school resource officer present in all of the campuses here on Columbiana. Sadly, in the wake of the Uvalde tragedy, it just brought to light the fact that we needed to have that resource. And so the county, the city, the board, they all committed funds to do that in the training. And in the past, we were having to take those basically cops off the beat, if you will, to be able to split their time amongst the 4 campuses here in Columbiana. So now we have a resource officer dedicated to each one of the campuses. Now, the other thing that helped us too to increase our staffing is the Department of Justice awarded Columbiana a grant, which we applied for, and it's called COPS, Community Oriented Policing Services. And what that grant did is provided us funding to help us recruit entry-level officers. And then it provided the funding to send those entry-level officers to the police academy. So we've got a couple of officers in addition out of the COPS grant. And then part of that grant is a strategy, as the name implies, it's community-oriented policing services, is that we had to develop a strategy to increase the police department's engagement with the community. So hopefully people are seeing more police officers on the beat. You're seeing them in and about our community. And so that's one of the reasons why you're going to see a greater police presence, if you will, is because we have, through our efforts, been able to replace some of the officers that we've been short of for possibly about a year and a half or so. So the next part is, are we increasing traffic stops to make more money for the city? And the answer is, again, a resounding no. In fact, state law precludes cities from retaining proceeds from traffic fines in excess of 10% of their operating budget. Now, that's oftentimes referred to as the Brookside Law because of issues associated in the community of Brookside. But, you know, we've always had a limit about how much the city can actually retain from traffic fines and other fines and fees. So it's not like the cities make a lot of money from these traffic stops. And as a result of this new law, cities have to report to the state information about the amount of money they've collected from fees and fines and how that money is spent. Now, in 2022, Columbiana retained money from fees and fines that only totaled less than 0.02% of the city's operating budget. The law says less than 10% of the city's operating budget. We didn't even come close to 1%. So we're not doing it, obviously, to make more money. So I wanted to give you some data, if you will. So if you look at the charts on the right side of this slide, if you will, about traffic citations, in 2022, the city of Columbiana wrote 1,592 traffic citations. At the same time, we wrote 1,870 warnings, significantly more warnings than citations. Citations obviously carry a fine, the warnings do not. Year to date in 2023, we've written and that's through the end of July, we've written 956 citations, but quite a few more warnings, 1,646. Now, part of that has to do with the increased police presence and the community engagement strategy that we were required to implement as a result of receiving the COPS grant. But the point is we're not writing more tickets. So when we do stop folks, we are issuing them warnings. Now, the fact that we issue a warning does not necessarily mean that the law was not violated, but we're just not writing a citation. Now, if you annualize the citations and warnings through the end of the year, that would equate to about 1,639 tickets, which is about a 2.9% increase over 2022. That's not a significant amount, especially with the fact that we were so short of officers in 2022. And it's about a 33% increase in warnings. And again, that's based on the fact that we're trying to increase our community presence, if you will. Now, if you look at criminal incidents that the police department responded to, in 2022, it was 179, but just through July in 2023, it's up to 200. Now, annualize that, and that's 343 criminal incidents if it continues at the same rate for the rest of the year. That's almost a 50% increase year over year in criminal incidents. That right there, that statistic right there, to me, justifies the increased police presence in our city. Now, most of those criminal incidents are domestic violence or domestic abuse related issues. They're things typically that happen in the home. Very difficult for the police department to be proactive regarding those things. And so on the good news side, the number of property crimes, burglaries, breaking and entering, etc., those are down about 54% year over year. So again, I like to think that that's largely due to the increased police presence. So I thought I'd give you the actual data. I told you the less than 1%. Our operating budget for 2022 was $10.1 million. We collected $263,000 in fees and fines. We retained only $1,761. So again, that's 0.017%. So we're certainly not making money over fees and fines, and it's not our intent to do. We've had this discussion even at our city council meeting, that we're not in the business of trying to write tickets to make money, nor are we in the business of trying to issue fines to people in order to make money. There is a certain punitive value, if you will, associated to those fees and fines, but we'd rather find alternative solutions if at all possible. Okay. So yard sales and trade days. So last month, someone raised a concern about yard sales, and the only way we regulate them, we don't have a yard sale ordinance, but we do have a permit and license ordinance, and the permit application is where you will find the specifics about yard sales, because it does require a permit. And it says that yard sales must be held at the household of the permit applicant, and they cannot be held on commercial property. It doesn't say that, but that's the intent. And neighborhood yard sales, because sometimes neighborhoods get together, they also have to be held at neighborhood households. So there's also a procedure in there for rummage sales, and the proceeds for those have to go directly to religious, charitable, or civic organizations. So those are not for any individuals to make money. The rummage sales, which require permits, are so that these various charitable organizations and civic organizations can use the proceeds as a fundraiser. So what we are going to do is we are going to improve the explanation and the rules that are on the permit applications, so that people will know exactly what they can and cannot do when they apply for a yard sale permit or a rummage sale permit. Columbiana Trade Days, I guess the best thing to say is TBD. I think we've discussed it at City Council. I think the jury is out. We've been doing some alternative things. We've had, state-sanctioned farmers markets. We have lots of other events and activities where we have vendors to come into town. Those vendors pay a vendor fee as well as collect and remit sales tax, whereas in trade days they were not collecting and remitting sales tax. So, but one of the challenges is that's been a volunteer-led organization or event, if you will. So we'd have to have volunteers. We need to decide about the permitting process and whether or not we're going to require sales tax. We also need to think about resales, because many of the folks in the past when we had trade days were basically buying a product and then coming to Columbiana Trade Days and reselling it. They would pay a sales tax to Community X when they bought this product, and then they would resell it in Columbiana with no sales tax. Unregulated foodstuffs is a concern. The farmers market has to have a grower's permit, and there are specifics for people who make product that they have grown in their own home. And then we really need to take a look at the community benefits. So jury's still out. We've got some time to work on that one, but we did kick that around at City Council, and I expect very soon we'll make a decision one way or another if we're going to do something like trade days or an alternative to trade days. So that's it for August. So keep those cards and letters coming in. Look forward to your questions. I think if you have an idea, if you have a concern, if you have a question, somebody else probably has that same idea, question, or concern. And so we want to make sure that we can share that information with as many people as possible. So you guys have a great month, and I'll see you in September.